Hello, everyone. My name is Garth Allen. I'm the Spiritual Life Director here at the Silver Bay YMCA. We're located on the shores of Lake George in the beautiful Adirondack Mountains. We have 700 acres here. It's just a beautiful spot. We're in the historic inn, coming to you from there today. And I'd like to welcome you to this presentation. We've been asked by Kyle Stewart and Rob Totoro from the New York Alliance of YMCAs to bring some talks that would encourage you during this time as we're facing some uncertainties due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And so today, I'd like to begin just simply by acknowledging how much our lives have changed in the past several weeks due to COVID-19. We've had to begin working from home, many of us, and I know many Ys around the state and around the country have had to furlough or lay off employees during this time. And so that's been a huge upsetting and challenging thing. Some of you may have children at home and you're trying to learn how to become a homeschool teacher in the midst of this as well, and that's has its own set of challenges. The way we interact with our friends and families has changed, with our colleagues. Even now, the simple things that we took for granted, like grocery shopping, can become maybe even a little bit scary because we don't know who's been in the grocery store before us, and we can have all these anxieties around that. So I just want to acknowledge that this virus, the coronavirus, has turned our world upside down. And so in light of this, I'd like to use this session to bring some maybe counterintuitive lessons for us to live well in these kind of upside down times. But before we get into the session, I want to say a few things that I said last time just to reiterate where we're coming from. First, the YMCA we acknowledge is a diverse and inclusive movement, and we are better for our diversity and for including people from all different faith backgrounds, all different ethnicities and racial backgrounds, sexual orientations. We affirm that. We welcome everyone. Everyone is welcome here. The Y has a place for everyone. There's space for everyone. There's room for everyone. No one gets left out and no one gets left behind. The second thing I'd like to affirm is that the YMCA historically came out of the Christian movement, Protestant Christian religious context. The C in the YMCA stands for Christian. And so that's part of where I come from in this talk. Is my training is in the history of Christianity and in pastoral ministry. And so I approach this session today as a pastor who comes out of the historic Christian tradition. And as such, I'll be using the Bible and other faith aspects to bring to bear on my talk. Now, whether you adhere to the Christian faith is really not critical for hopefully taking something of value from this message today. I hope you can acknowledge that the Christian faith has had a big influence on our history and as a people and even in the world, and the Bible has been an influential book, whether or not you adhere to it as your sort of system of faith. So I hope this will be valuable for you no matter where you stand on those sorts of things. So again, I'd like to look at 5 counterintuitive life lessons from the teachings of Jesus Christ that can enable us to live well in these upside down times. It's kind of a mouthful, but the lessons might sound like paradoxes from Jesus' teachings, but they can help us in this moment when we're feeling unsettled, where we're feeling like we have been sort of shocked out of our normal lives. So lesson 1, grow from the inside out. Attempt in this time to grow from the inside out. Jesus in Matthew's gospel says this. He called the crowd to come here. Listen, Jesus said, and try to understand. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. You are defiled by the words that come out of your mouth. In Jesus' day, many religious people were very concerned with their outward practices. What kind of foods they ate or didn't eat, what kind of clothes they wore or didn't wear. And it was very important how you looked outwardly and how you performed outwardly. And it's similar in our culture, right? We all care about how we look and how we present ourselves. If you have social media, you know many of us on our social media portray images. We wear masks that aren't necessarily who we really are at our core. And so we care about the outward appearance and how we look. That's important to us. Jesus flips this paradigm on its head and says what's really important is not your outward appearance, but the stuff that's going on internally. What's really important is what's going on in your heart and in your mind and in your soul. And so as we live in this perplexing time, I'd like to encourage each of you to focus on some inward growth during this time, that you would seek to find practices or to find readings or those things that would fuel you to grow internally, so that you would have that inner strength that can sustain you during the challenges that we face in this pandemic. The second lesson number 2, is to learn to lead by serving. Learn to lead by serving. In Mark chapter 10, we have this. So Jesus called them together, his disciples, and said, "You know that the rulers of this world lord it over people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many." In this passage, Jesus is calling into question the authoritarian style of leadership that he viewed in his culture. And I'm sure many of us have witnessed that as well, where people who are leaders tend to rely on their position or their title to gain authority and rule and lead in that way. Jesus says that true leadership actually stems from humility. And real leaders will serve those whom they hope to lead from a position of listening and learning, not commanding and demanding. The top-down authoritarian leadership style is at odds with the style that Jesus is proposing. He's proposing a humble, bottom-up, sort of team-oriented leadership style. And so in this time where we live, where there's so much stress and so much difficulty, it's more important than ever that we serve those that we wish to lead. This applies, I think, both at home and in our work environments. People are much more likely to follow someone who cares about them, who humbly reaches out to them, rather than one who demands that you follow them. A leadership guru, John Maxwell, has written this. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So people don't care how much you know, right? The authoritarian leaders, they feel like they've got it figured out. They know what you should do. Maxwell's using Jesus' model and saying, no, people will follow you when they know how much you care. So serving your coworkers, serving your friends and family members, to do that in this model, you need to develop trust. That's essential. If you want to offer truly visionary leadership during this trying time, you should seek to serve those you wish to lead. Lesson number 3, live as a free prisoner. Live as a free prisoner. In John 8:32, Jesus said, "And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." You'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. As we continue to live under Governor Cuomo's pause order here in New York, we may feel a bit like prisoners in our own homes. And we do this because we do hope that this is making a difference, that staying home is beneficial in sort of slowing the spread of COVID-19 and flattening the curve, all those things. That's why we're doing this, but it still does feel like our freedom is inhibited. In Jesus' quote above, he's comparing truth and liberty, truth and freedom. And conversely, the opposite is that dishonesty or lying to others or to ourselves actually binds us. And so we would do well if we continue, especially in this time, to practice being truthful people and honest people in the midst of these trying times. not only honest with others, but honest with ourselves. Be honest about your own fears, your own struggles. Be honest about your anxieties, what you need from those who you work with and those in your family. Be honest about who you really are, in the depths of who you are, and how you really feel. If we embrace honesty in this way, if we embrace truth in this way, we can experience a new measure of freedom and hope, even though we may feel confined in these times. So I would encourage you, as we're compelled to stay home, to experience the freedom of being truthful and honest with yourselves and others can bring. Lesson 4, be a generous gatherer. Be a generous gatherer. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus uses a story to teach the value of generosity. I'll be reading from Eugene Peterson's translation of the Bible, which is called The Message. I really like it because it's sort of an earthy and contemporary translation that really brings home these lessons on generosity home to us. Here's what it says. Speaking to the people, Jesus went on, "Take care, protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot." Then Jesus told them this story. The farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. The farmer talked to himself, "What can I do? My barn isn't big enough for this harvest." Then he said, "Here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll gather in all my grain and all my goods, and I'll say to myself, 'Self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life.' Just then God showed up and said to the man, 'You fool, tonight you will die. And your barn full of goods, who will get it?'" I just love the way Peterson puts that. This farmer is illustrative of who we are in the 21st century in America. We always want the latest and greatest things. We always want more. We want to have more and more stuff. Probably most of the time we want more than we actually really need. It's like the bumper sticker that I'm sure you've read says, "The one who dies with the most toys wins." I think we may not put that on our car, but a lot of us actually live as if that's true. And Jesus is advocating a totally different way of life. He's saying that we should gather things, we should collect things, stuff or money, for the purpose of being generous, not just to have more stuff. So instead of being this accumulator of goods and of money, we should get what we need, but we should use what we have to serve others by being generous and sharing what we have. I'm sure most of you know at the outset of this crisis with COVID-19, there was a run on the stores and everyone was just getting as much toilet paper as possible. Now, I'm not saying this was motivated by greed, probably more by uncertainty and by fear than by greed. But we simply, if we gather what we need and no more, and we generously share what we have, that has an impact on our communities. And hopefully the people around us will see that and witness it, and they will be willing to share what they have as well. So I'm hoping that I can encourage you to engage and embrace this model of generous gathering so that none of us will really have to go without anything we truly need as this crisis goes on. Lesson number 5, be a successful failure. Be a successful failure. This talk was written as being recorded in the midst of Holy Week. During this week, Christians remember the crucifixion of Jesus on Good Friday and the resurrection of Jesus from the dead on Easter morning. All 4 of the Gospels present these 2 incidents back to back, both the crucifixion and the resurrection. And this is important because if we only look at Jesus until he died, his story can seem to be a failure. He had all these great teachings and all these great lessons and people followed him, but he was put to death and that's it. But that's not where the story ends in the Gospels. The story tells us that Jesus was buried and on the 3rd day he rose again. And whether you buy into that or not, his disciples bought into it. And because they followed Jesus, who was both put to death and rose again, They went forth and shared this message around the world, and Christianity became one of the largest and most influential religions, and continues to be influential even today. There are many examples in our society, in the scriptures, other places about failures preceding success. One of my favorite stories is the story of Michael Jordan, the basketball player. The story goes that he was cut from his varsity team as a high school student, but then he went on to become a star at the University of North Carolina and won a national championship with them, went on to be a star with the Chicago Bulls in the NBA and won a number of NBA titles with them. Michael Jordan was a successful failure. He failed at the outset, but he didn't let that stop him. And so during this time, as we face all sorts of challenges, we may feel like failures because we've lost our job for the time being, or we don't feel like we're doing our job to the best of our abilities because we're not with our colleagues. We may fall. True failure is only when we fall and don't get up. When we get up and keep trying, we can be successful. So I want to encourage you not to let any past failures or any failures of the present keep you down. Let these failures be the seeds of your future success. The COVID-19 pandemic has turned our world and our lives upside down. However, in the midst of this crazy and challenging time, there is hope, and there are opportunities for us to live well and to become better people. Let me just reiterate those 5 counterintuitive life lessons to help us live well in these upside down times. Lesson 1, grow from the inside out. Don't worry so much about your outward image or what you're wearing. Cultivate an inner sense of peace and hope during this time. Lesson number 2, lead by serving. Seek opportunities to serve those in your family and those around you as a way to lead people. You're going to get much further in actually leading people by using these humble, service-oriented methods rather than the typical leading by force. Lesson number 3, live as a free prisoner. Live as a free prisoner. Let the truth set you free. Don't believe the lies that people would spread about you. Don't lie to yourself. Be honest with your feelings and what's going on and admit it. And the truth will give you this sense of freedom and this sense of hopefulness. Lesson 4, be a generous gatherer. Take in what you need. Go to the store and get what you need. Don't go crazy over consuming everything. And share what you have. Be generous with your friends, your family, your neighbors. And I think you'll find they'll be generous with you. Lesson 5, be a successful failure. We all fail. We all fall down. Let these failures be the seeds of your future success. Don't let them be the last word. Thank you so much for your kind attention to this video. I do hope that each of you is able to get something helpful. Just pick one thing that you heard today. Apply it so that your own journey is strengthened during these really hard times. On behalf of Silver Bay YMCA and the New York Alliance of YMCAs, I'd like to wish you, your families, your communities, safety and health as we work together to get beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. Take care of yourselves, and God bless.